officers respond to the shooting, 14300 East Alameda Avenue.
The World Trade Center, tower number 1 is on fire. The whole outside of the building was just a huge explosion.
You're listening to Be the Hero podcast, brought to you by Heroes Behind the Line, where we break the stigma of silence around PTSD and mental health. Are you a first responder in need, or just want to talk? Send us a message on Facebook, Heroes Behind the Line, or Be the Hero podcast, and welcome to the show.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody in Heroes Behind the Line land. This is your director, Travis Browning, on the Be the Hero podcast. It's been a little bit of time since we had a podcast. Everything's been crazy in life. We say this every time, I think. But we're here, and currently right now I am at the Fraternal Order of Police Wellness Summit in Nashville, Tennessee at the beautiful Sheraton Hotel. And luckily today we actually have the Arkansas State Fraternal Order of Police President, Bart Simpson. Bart, welcome to the show.
I appreciate it. Good to be here.
Thanks for being here, buddy. Me and Bart go back for a while. We used to ride motorcycles together, and I used to call him a whole lot of time, when we worked in legislation efforts and stuff like that. We'd like, hey, Bart, what's the question? Bart was kind of like our go-to guy. He knows a lot of people, knows a lot of information, and been doing it for a long time. So, Bart, just kind of starting off, tell the people out in Podcastville, where you're from, how it all started for you, getting into law enforcement and stuff like that.
All right. Well, I grew up in a small city in northeast Arkansas called Manila in Mississippi County. One thing I always wanted to do, I grew up on a farm. My dad was a farmer, and I knew that wasn't the life for me. The only thing I ever wanted to do was be a police officer. I had some other jobs through college and all that, but I wanted to be a police officer. Right. And I got that opportunity. I was lucky that I moved to Little Rock in 1988, actually. And working for a company called Skaggs Alpha Beta. I got the opportunity to go down there and work loss prevention. I was assigned 4 different stores. I was in charge of those 5 stores there in Little Rock, in the Little Rock Central area. And got lucky and got hired by the Little Rock Police Department right after I turned 21. So 1990, I became a Little Rock police officer. And my goal at the Little Rock Police Department wasn't to make rank. I wanted to be a homicide detective. And that was my passion, and I say this all the time. I'm truly a person that can say that I got to live my dream. I was a homicide detective in Little Rock for almost 18 of my 28 years. I was a detective for 22 of my 28 years, but right at 18 of that as a homicide detective. Absolutely loved every second of it. Gave up a lot, learned a lot, and we'll kind of get into how that correlates to what we're doing today.
Right.
But I retired in 18, and I stayed retired about 3 days.
Yeah.
And then ran 6 businesses for a buddy of mine. I'm a firearms instructor and had my own private investigation company and all that. And my wife is actually from Sharp County, and we built a house up there. And
beautiful house.
Yes.
Very beautiful house.
And a friend of mine became sheriff last year in 2023, and he asked me to be his chief deputy. So I came out of quit running those businesses and went back into law enforcement full-time. And, of course, I had done some part-time stuff up there, too. But full-time as the chief deputy of the Sharp County Sheriff's Office, which is where I'm at currently. As far as the FOP goes, I guess I've been an FOP for 32 years now.
Right.
Obviously with Little Rock for the 28 years. I was on the Little Rock FOP board, I don't know, probably 20 years.
Yeah.
I was the Little Rock FOP president for 3 years. Other positions on that board. Became the state FOP vice president for 2 years, and I'm on my 8th year as state FOP president.
Yep.
And
some people, so not everybody in the world knows what FOP is. Obviously, that's the Fraternal Order of Police. I think it started in forever ago. So I can't remember the exact year, but it's
1915.
Is it 15? Yeah, I can't remember. I'm sorry.
No.
For everybody that's out there, I'm kind of new to the FOP world. I've only been part of the membership for a couple of years now, and I recently took over as secretary of the local chapter that we're in. So I'm still kind of learning everything, but FOP was, basically kind of started to help law enforcement officers. I mean, that's the whole background. I mean, there's a lot more to it than just that, but 100 years ago they said, hey, cops need help too, just like the unions help other people, and I guess
that's actually it. Exactly.
Yeah.
It was 2 officers in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania,
right,
that decided they need to come together and work to make the law enforcement profession better and to have someone that speaks for them.
Right.
And that's how the FOP was started.
Right. And so when it got started, obviously 100 years ago, things were a lot different than what they are now. And so in kind of what today's summit or the classes we're in now is basically 100% geared towards mental health. I mean, obviously the FOP's agenda for mental health has really vamped up over the last few years, and I know you've been a big part of that. Even back when Heroes was trying to pass legislation, Bart was there for us 100% with any question we had, and the lobbyists and stuff like that. There's a lot of work that goes into making laws and legislation and moving stuff around, and even department policies. That's hard, so the FOP kind of comes in and helps with a lot of that stuff.
Absolutely. I spent a lot of time at the Capitol during the legislative session working on our legislative priorities. In fact, we also do that on the national level with
right.
the FOP. FOP Day on the Hill is coming up March the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, I believe it is. So I'll be in Washington, D.C., meeting with all the Arkansas delegation there to talk about the top legislative priorities for not only just Arkansas, but across the country. So you'll have people like myself, my counterparts in the other states will be there doing the exact same thing. Yeah. And this time is something that has never been done. One of our top legislative priorities is the Social Security Fairness Act.
Yeah. And
we're actually joining with the IAFF, the International Association of Firefighters, to do a big rally and join together as one to get this thing going.
Right. And I know in for Arkansas, at least, when we were passing these legislations that was a big thing too, is IAFF wanted to come in. So as much as we talk about our firemen brethrens, they actually do care about us, and that Matt Stallings at Little Rock Fire helped us tremendously.
Phenomenal.
And I'm like, we can all make fun of them being hose draggers or whatever. They sleep all the time, get cats out of trees, but seriously, those guys have done everything they can to make both our lives better and theirs as well. But
absolutely.
So we love them for that. So talking about the mental health side of things, you spent all those years at Little Rock being a homicide detective. Now you're chief deputy, president. You got all this stuff in the fire, right? But the question that a lot of people always ask is, how do you manage all that? Because I know every time I call, you're like, hey, I'm on the road, or hey, I'm doing this, or hey, I'm doing that. But how do you kind of feel like you manage dealing all that stuff with all the stuff that you've seen over the years?
Well, that's kind of the thing, and before I left Little Rock, my last year, if you're in homicide, you know that you need to get out as soon as you can, close to retiring, because you're going to continue to have to go to court. Mm-hmm. I waited a little bit longer than I should have, but I got the opportunity to work in the Special Projects Office for the chief, under Chief Buckner at the time.
Yep.
And that's also part of the accreditation unit.
Yeah.
So I couldn't understand why I was doing accreditation, because that wasn't really my thing. But now I know it was part of the pathway that led me to it. I can use it a lot with my current position.
Right.
But one of the things that we did is Chief Buckner came in there, I think it was like my first or second week on that squad. He come in there, he goes, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? I'm like, coming to work?
Right.
He goes, now go in there, we're going to Indianapolis tomorrow. And he turns to walk out. I'm like, what are you talking about? For what? He goes, we're going to go look at their wellness program. We're going to start a wellness unit at the Little Rock Police Department, and you're going to be part of that. And I'm like, okay. I said, but you realize I'm retiring in a year. He goes, we'll see.
Yeah.
But we did go to Indianapolis because at the time they have one of the best wellness units in the country.
Yep.
They're recognized everywhere, and they do a phenomenal job. So we did go down there, and so I was part of starting the wellness unit there at the Little Rock Police Department, and it's carrying on. I did leave. I did retire in 2018, but Henry Moore and Michelle Hill,
God bless.
and all
they
them,
do so amazing
they do
stuff.
such an amazing job.
Yes, every time.
And they've carried that on. But where it was really, at the time, I didn't understand. I mean, okay, I can do this. You give me a task, I'm going to complete it.
Right.
But I was really good at helping other people, because we had started to recognize, the FOP had started to recognize on a national level that, we need to do this, because PTSD is a problem in law enforcement.
Yeah,
and we're losing more officers to suicide, just like we talked about today, than we are at
line of duty. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there needed to be a change. We got to break that cycle and break that stigma, and say that it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that we did here the last 2 years, and I've come to this Wellness Summit since its inception. So I was here for the very first one, and I've come back every year because it's that important to me. But one of the things that we talked about is, while we say PTSD and that's on all the stuff, but really we got away from that.
Right.
It's PTSI,
Yeah.
post-traumatic stress injury.
Right.
Because if you think of a disorder, it's almost like there's no hope.
Right.
But an injury can be healed, and it can. So I was really good about talking to people and recognize other people's problems and saying, hey, we need to do this and all that. Not realizing at the time that I was really talking about myself.
Right.
And it wasn't until one day it finally just hit me, because all those years I worked homicide and all that, I came up in the culture where you handle everybody else's problems, you just keep that in, you find a way to deal with it on your own. And I did with my faith, and music for me was my big thing.
Music, yeah.
But I didn't realize that I really had an issue. But honestly, through all of that, I never had the typical nightmares and having nightmares and seeing dead people in my dreams, and that's what I didn't have that.
Right.
Until about a year after I was retired.
Really?
Then I started having issues. And I put on a good front. I was handling all my business, all my obligations, all that. I was going to work every day. I was teaching classes, and I was being me, I'm a jokester. I like to cut up. I like to talk and all that. And I would do that all day. But when I got home, I wanted to be in the dark, totally away from people. I didn't want to be around people. I didn't like people. I just wanted to be by myself. And my wife, a saint, I don't know, we've been married 15 years now. I don't know how she put up with me this long. But she kept telling me, she goes, you need to talk to somebody. I didn't see it until one day, out of nowhere, it just hit me. And I lost it because I'd started having all that stuff. But because of all the stuff that I had done with the wellness unit and researching and coming here and all that, I realized that all those years I'd built up these walls. And once I got away from it, those started coming down. So I did start having the nightmares and having the issues. And I went and got help.
Right.
As everybody's been playing, I have a service dog.
Yep.
He's amazing. He's not your typical service dog because he's only 3.4 pounds.
That's correct.
He's a miniature Yorkie, but he goes with me everywhere. He goes to work with me everywhere, and he has been amazing for me.
Yeah. And what's his name again?
His name is Bouge,
and
or Bouge.
Bouge, and he's currently inside of a Louis Vuitton dog carrier.
Yes,
he is very bougie. I did watch him steal $100 from somebody and take off running, so he lives up to his name.
He likes $100 bills.
Probably the coolest dog, though, I think I've ever seen. And, a lot of people, we've had a lot of different people talk about service dogs and stuff like that, and what they don't realize is it doesn't have to be this massive, huge dog.
No.
I mean, Bouge, as small as he is, does the job.
He does.
Just him being around me because Bart knows the full story, but we had a lot of issues getting up here and issues checking in with the hotel, and I was just stressed out. And then I woke up this morning, my coffee machine, I didn't have the syrups, and, you guys know me and coffee, I have to have it. And I was like, man, I'm just having it. And then Bouge comes out, and I'm like, man, my whole day just got immediately better.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that's literally how it works. And, you might have more in-depth stuff with him, but, like, for me, that helped my day out.
Well, that's just like today. We sit there in class, and nobody ever knows he's there.
Right.
Because that's what he's supposed to be.
Right.
And what he does, if I do get upset, like I have been diagnosed with PTSD and anxiety disorder, then if he's out, sometimes he is out.
Right.
So like he lays on my foot. If he's in his Louis Vuitton carrier,
right,
then he will bark one time.
Right.
Just to get my attention,
to redirect you, essentially.
Absolutely. So he's a lot of people. Well, like we saw it tonight.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand the difference between, is he okay?
Right.
Can you do this or whatever? But no, he's prescribed to me by my therapist.
Right.
And he's, for me, that's what makes him a service animal.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And we had a little question, we went to dinner tonight to have some food, and Bouge was with us, of course, and we walk in, and one of the managers or something came to the table and said, hey, is that a service dog? And of course we're, oh yeah, and and that was pretty much the only question we had. It was pretty easy stuff. I mean, I know there's a lot of service dogs, quote unquote service dogs out there that kind of give the service dog industry a bad rep,
right,
and cause some sour taste in the mouth. But luckily for this place, man, it was super good. The food was good.
Yes,
it actually had what was those cheese wedges you had?
Oh my God.
They come out. I said that he thought they were going to be a lot smaller, but they come out the size of they're in triangles, and they're so big. I said it kind of looked like a colonial style hat from the early American wars, and but they were pretty large, but good food. But we we laughed, talked about it a little bit, but laughed it off, and no big deal, And so, do you have really any other issues, or
I have not.
It seems like true service. I mean, I call them true service dogs, actual service dogs that are made, prescribed essentially to you. I don't really hear a lot of issues of them actually having any problems. And so many people always say, well, I'd like a service dog, but there's all these issues with getting one. But I don't, on the rare fact you may have a problem, it far outweighs what you're actually getting from the dog. So.
And absolutely, I've been asked, really, a Yorkie?
Yeah.
Well, to me, number one, I like that breed, but two, he's so much easier to get around.
Oh yeah, because you travel all over the place.
Yeah. He can fly.
Yep.
And he's not this big German Shepherd, which I don't have anything against German Shepherds. I love them, but for me, that is just more practical.
Yeah.
And
the hair.
Yes.
German I had a German, and it was like everywhere I went, it was just covered in hair. So at least this way, it's
and I have to have a hypoallergenic dog.
Right.
I have to have. So it works out.
Yeah.
But no, it's great. He's been amazing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I ran into some other service dogs since we've been here. One of the guys has a Akita, and he's a big dog. He's pretty large. So not saying you got to have a small one. You can have a large one, a big one. It's what works for you.
Absolutely.
And I think his name was actually Nico Suave. Kind of like the funny from back in the day, and super cool dog, but. A lot of people don't understand there's many ways to get the same result.
Absolutely.
And if it works for you, that's all that matters. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it matters what it does for you.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter what it does for me or the people around you. It matters what it does for you. And if he works for you, and I think he's cool. I'm probably going to kidnap him later. And
I know.
Yeah. Bart might beat me up for it.
I know where to find him.
Yeah. So talking a little bit more about say 20 years ago, 30 years ago when you started. Little Rock. You said late 90s or 90?
1990, yeah.
And so that was like the whole Banging in the Rock area, the big gang wars in Little Rock and stuff like that. People, there's an HBO series out about it. So that was like legit policing back then.
Yeah, and I started out on permanent midnights on Granite Mountain.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were definitely in the middle of all of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so do you see a big change in, like then, like you said, it was always a, feel better, Buttercup. You ain't got no problems. Was there a lot of that at the time?
Yeah, there was. Of course, it was a different era. What we call the old school. It's kind of funny. We call the old school guys. Now we're the old school guys.
Right. Yeah, I'm getting there. So don't remind me.
I know, right? But yeah, it was that. You don't show emotion. You just handle everybody. Just handle your business. You just deal with it outside of here. You don't deal with anything while you're working.
Yeah.
You can't show emotion.
Right.
That is not correct.
Right.
You have to be able to function and do your job. I give a perfect example. We had a stretch there where we had like several young children killed in drive-bys.
Yeah.
They were just all really close together. This one in particular, I was already at the hospital working another case, another shooting, where they thought they were going to die. And they brought this little girl in who had been shot in the chest. And she was pretty much gone when they brought her in.
Right.
But UAMS is an amazing place. It's
Yep.
a teaching hospital.
It is.
I was in the room, where they were working on her. Really bothered me, but I was there to do a job. What I found worked best for me is once I get what I needed, I stepped outside. I called Jade, my wife, and I said, I need to talk just a second. I let it out with her. Mm-hmm. We talked. I cried. I got over what I needed to get over at the time to go back and do my job. And I went back in there and continued. I tell you what it really makes me think of. North Little Rock just had a really bad deal with a mother and two children.
Off 440 or whatever.
Off of 440 where mother and the what was it, a 2-month-old?
Yeah, I believe so. And then they found another one.
Yeah. So that brought up a lot of thought of that day for me. So I know how that is.
Yeah.
And you do have to find a way to cope with. Like I said, for me, I get asked all the time, how did you deal with all that? What was your outlet? Well, number one, it was my faith.
Right.
And number two, I went to college, actually not to be a police officer. I went to college for music and vocal music. So that's my outlet.
Yeah, he's actually going to sing as soon as we're done with this podcast. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Not tonight, I'm not. But that was my outlet.
Right.
And that's what I found helped me.
Yeah.
So I never lost sight of that. Now, I have plenty of people, unfortunately, that I know that has experienced. I've experienced suicide in people that I know.
Right.
Police officers that I know that have killed themselves. Not an easy thing to deal with.
No.
You never understand it. There's some people that have been really close to me that you never saw it coming.
Right.
And I like to think that, I could see.
Yeah.
But you're not going to see it
No.
every time, You can have an issue just like nobody ever knew I had an issue either.
Right.
Because I was always, smiling, laughing, joking. Even though I was going to work, I was doing that. It wasn't until I got home.
Right.
I guess one of the lucky ones, because I had my outlet and I did realize it, and I had a great support system in my wife that supported me throughout, and we got it done, and I got the help that I needed.
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate, and I've never lost sight, just like when I was working in homicide. It's all about helping people, so my experience, I want to share that and help someone else.
Right.
We can just stop just one.
That's
Just
all we
one.
always say. Yeah, that's what we say all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people don't realize it is everybody thinks that, if I go to this bad call, that's when it's going to hit me.
Yeah.
And for me it wasn't, and you're saying the same thing. Like, man, you were retired. Like, it's well past you leaving the job, and then just one day, man, something's hit me, and that was my biggest thing. And people got to understand everybody's different. Nobody's built the same. God made us all different for a reason. And then, some guys, it may be the next day. Some guys, that, like you said, it might be 20 years later. Yeah. But the biggest thing is understanding that when something like that does hit you, don't sit there and think that I've got to be macho man. Don't be the old head guys. Because I remember when I first started, and of course I haven't done it nearly as long as you have, but I've been around for a few years now, and that was the same thing we had even 18 years ago.
Right.
And so but reach out, get help. It's there. There's so many resources. Heroes, obviously, we're free. We'll help anybody in the world. But if it's not us, find somebody else.
Oh, absolutely.
The FOP, if you go to the website, FOP.net, right, there is literally an officer wellness tab on there. You click it. It'll give you everything that they possibly have to try to help you
Correct.
out. They're adding vetted resources to it, so you can click a button and see who the FOP, which, we put a lot in the FOP because obviously they're trying to vet people to
Right.
make sure we're getting the best possible help. It's going to make sure we're taken care of, not to call your job and
Right.
be that. That's not what that's there for, but it's competent people to help us. And so it's all right there on the website. You can go to it, click it. There's training on there. This training, there's scholarships to come to this training. A lot of
Yes.
people that may not be able to afford to come all the way out here, there's scholarships to get you here and pay for your stuff. And so
Correct.
there's a lot of options out there. So we don't really have an excuse to say, well, I couldn't do it because of this or couldn't. What excuse do you have? I'll pay
Right.
for it. FOP will help pay for some of it. There's other, DOG grants and stuff like that,
Correct.
or DOJ grants and stuff like that that'll help pay for a lot of it. So if you're out there and you're like, man, I just don't know, holler at us, holler at the FOP. Even if you're trying to start like a wellness unit at your agency or something like that to help out, that's all we talked about today in a lot of these classes was, CRYTAC and other organizations that will literally come in and pay for you to go to other agencies to see what they're doing and be able to take it back, bring experts in, and start programs at every department. And I think it's great that Congress is really starting to back helping first responders get help that they need.
That's right, and that's part of the problem. It always has been. It was that, well, number one, if I say anything, I'm going to get fired.
Right.
They're going to think I'm weak. They're going to think that I'm crazy. That's that stigma. That's that thing that we have to change.
Yeah.
Is that no, you're going to be okay.
Right.
I remember like it was yesterday. I remember when, yes, I admitted, yes, I need to go get help. So even though I made that appointment, that day I remember I sit out there in that parking lot thinking, okay, I'm going to go in there. One of two things is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to sit there with my arms crossed and I'm not going to say a word.
Yep.
Or I'm going to go in there and I'm going to open my mouth. I won't be able to shut up.
Right.
And luckily for me, it was the
Number
second.
two, right? Yep.
And I sit back and I said a lot of the stuff I just said there. And I said, because these walls were up and then they came down and all that. My appointment was only 30 minutes. Well,
Right.
we're an hour and 30 minutes into it,
Right.
and he hasn't stopped me yet.
Right.
And I finally stopped talking, and he just looked at me. He goes, you know what I would give to have all of my patients have the insight that you just had?
Right.
other than getting it out, you don't really need me.
Right.
He goes, but you needed to get that out.
Yep.
And I did. I let everything from all of this come out. And I can't even describe how much better I felt just after that one day.
Yeah.
And, of course, I continued to go. But
Yeah.
after that one day, it was just like someone had just taken, like, I don't even know how to describe it, this huge weight of the world off of me.
Yeah.
That in that one day, just me getting it all out.
Yeah.
And that's the key to it.
Yeah. Well, it's, we always say it's like a dam, if the dam's there, it's holding strong,
Yeah.
everything's great. But then, one little piece and it all comes down, which that's kind of good in this thing. It's like, because we've been holding all this stuff back for so long. And then finally, like you said, you walked in there and you said like a couple minutes worth of stuff. And then you're like, you know what? I'm just going to let this whole dam open up and we're just going to let it all out. And you're like, man, I feel so much better. Mm-hmm. And I think, heroes, we've been helping people for a long time now. And a lot of them say the same stuff. They're like, man, at first I was like, no, I've tried to make up every reason why they couldn't go. I can't pay for it. I can't get off. And so we at Heroes, in help with Elisa Mitchell, one of our clinicians and all that, we've kind of found a way to, all the excuses you try to give us, we're like, no, we'll pay for it. You need off, we'll make sure you get off. We'll make sure your department doesn't know what you're doing. All that stuff. We'll take care of everything. And then when they finally get there, they said, man, I'm so glad I went. Because they went in there and they talked, and most of the clinicians will tell you, there's nothing wrong with you. You don't really need me. You just needed to get that first step out, have a couple redirect moments. I can help you channel it a certain way, and make sure we don't get back on the ledge we're on. And then people are straight for a long time. Now, Vernon that was talking today from Baltimore PD, he's like, hey, man, so he is Baltimore PD has a great wellness program. I've listened to him speak many times. Vernon Heron is his name. Great guy. He was Maryland State Police, then he ended up going to Baltimore, but he was in a shooting early on in his career, and it really struggled with it for the years. But he said, I've been talking to a mental health professional ever since then. And this was like 70s,
yes.
And so not saying that you're a crazy person because you keep going to a mental health professional. It's just sometimes we need, a little bit of, maintenance work.
Absolutely.
It's just like your car. Every now and again, you got to take and get an oil change, right? We're the same way.
Right.
Every now and again, you might just need to go get that oil change, and get a little tune up, and you're good to go for another 3,000 miles or whatever. So
that's it.
There's no sense in sitting around. Telehealth now, it's easy. A lot of times you don't even have to walk in the office,
Right.
There's so many ways to do it. And we talked a little bit earlier, and some of the other people were, like medications. Like, you don't have to take medications. Not everybody needs it. There's so many other options out there. VA resources, there's so much stuff. FOP offers different things and guidance to get to other things. And, Heroes, we will too, And so, I'm not a big medicine guy myself. And so
me either.
I'm not big on taking it, but, the VA, they're like, hey, we'll send you to acupuncture. We'll send you to yoga, goat yoga, whatever, like in this morning, what did they do? They had meditation, they had yoga, all that stuff opening up today so that people can have those releases. There's massage chairs open right now, so there's a million different ways to reach the same goal. It's just like being a cop.
Right.
There's 1,000 ways to do it. As long as we get to the end of the road the same on every call, it doesn't matter how you get there.
Right.
Some is easier, some is harder. I wish I'd have learned the easier way a lot earlier on in my career. It still took me some time, but here we are. But that's the big thing is just get the help. Don't sit there and act like you don't. I mean, if the state FOP president can sit here and say, hey, look, I had an issue, I got it taken care of, and I'm good, then so can everybody else.
Absolutely. And it's only going to get bigger, just like this Wellness Summit, we continue to add resources, just like that map that Sherry showed today of the vetted places. Last year at this very time,
there's probably 10 blue dots on a map showing it.
And now there's like
60. I mean, it's grown tremendously.
This summit, the people coming has grown every year. This is the biggest one yet.
Yeah, there's a lot of people here.
Yeah, so
there's a lot of people here from all over.
We're just going to keep on with the fight and keep on doing this.
That's all we can do.
Yep.
So as we kind of wrap it up, we always like to, I ask the guests a lot of times is if you could go back and do anything differently, if you could tell the younger you, kind of, hey, this is something to be mindful of. Is there anything you could think of? It doesn't have to be mental health related. It could be anything, but.
Yeah, just honestly, especially as a homicide detective, because it was, 24/7, 365. I may be gone. Luckily for Jade, she met me. I was already a homicide detective, so she kind of knew a little bit what to expect. Don't let it control your life.
Right.
Don't let the police department be everything that you think of 24/7. take care of your family, spend time with your family. Don't let the job consume you,
right?
Because you will pay for it in the end.
Absolutely. We talk about that a lot actually on this show, is that, you've got sick days for a reason.
Yes.
If you're sick, you're sick. If you needed to go on vacation, because, the sheriff's office or the police department or whatever you might work for, they were started in 1835.
Right.
And guess what? When you leave, they're still going to be there.
That's right.
And so not saying that they don't care about us and all that, but you got to take care of you.
Right.
Ultimately, because if
That's
you can't
number one.
take care of you, how can you take care of anybody else? So, well, Bart, we appreciate it again, you coming on the show. I look up to you a lot. You're my go-to man when I have any question about 90% of things, it seems like, here lately. But we appreciate you for coming on. Hey, we're going to be here at the show for another few days. At the end of the week, we're also here for the Leadership Matters course by the FOP.
Excellent.
So the game plan is just to have some more people on and have a few episodes from both. And, this may be like a part one of, 3 or 4, depending on who all can come on. We're sorry for the, loud noise in the background. There's not much I can do about it. We're sharing the room with the rest of the FOP. But, we're glad to be here. We're glad to get this training. And you guys remember, always be the hero out there. And we'll catch you on the next episode.